So it did get a bunch of views.
Good.
But we might have one or two views while we're here. I did one an hour ago, and I got somebody from search. All right. Hey, we're live on the YouTube here, and well, this is going to be the Bacon version of Distributed Conversations with the one and only Mr. Bacon, Brian Basilico. Hey, should we talk about bacon or something else?
Well, we could talk about bacon. We could talk about technology. We could talk about relationships. We could talk about
I
whatever you
think
want.
essentially, we're distributed conversations here. We're distributed. You're in
Hmm.
Chicago. I'm in Vegas. That's distributed right there. All Zoom is. I think all of life is these days.
Exactly.
Um, uh, but uh, but yeah, the relationships. It's easy to brush that off and say, "Hey, this ain't a relationship show. This isn't a marketing show." But let's start talking about technology and what's changing. Since I met you several years ago, things are
Hmm.
different.
Yep.
We actually bumped into some place and had bacon together.
We did. It was in Denver, Colorado at a
It was.
conference.
And it's only once, right?
Yeah, just
So we've
once.
been distributed for some time, but
Right.
it's different the fact that I have dined with you at some point.
Hmm.
And, the Zoom meetings are nice. I'm not sick of Zoom meetings yet. I'm an old ugly guy here sitting here in my studio. I'd be sitting here watching a YouTube video if I wasn't recording the podcast, or doing my work. So I don't have to move hardly at all, which is a whole nother health problem. But today's show, we're talking about what do we get beyond that? Some people are getting really tired of this, always sitting in front of the screen and talking to people.
Yep.
While it's fantastic technology and getting better and better, I think we've got to look at enhancing that. And how do we take relationships, building, networking, and this stuff you teach and start applying it to using these new technologies? And then ultimately, where do we invest so that our companies and the ones we invest in? I'm full disclosure, I own some Zoom stock. I'm a big fan of Zoom, been using it for 5 years. But I'm not pitching it because I own Zoom.
Yeah.
Everything else. I mean, I love Nimbo. I told you about Nimbo. You're now Mr. Nimbo. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. Let's
Hmm.
talk about that a bit, and let's talk about so the LinkedIn part of it. But mostly, in fact, let's turn it around. Let's start off with the new technology. Let's make something interesting and grab those eyeballs on the YouTube video.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing you've got to do, though, before you even talk about the new technology, is talk about the OG, the old guard. I mean, way back yonder when, we first started in online networking, it was GoToMeeting, it was WebEx, it was,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
you're starting way later than me, but yeah.
yeah, but
It
yeah,
was CompuServe and occasional email when I started.
well, I mean, we did that too, but I'm talking about the video conferencing stuff. I mean, I used to do
Yep.
video conferencing for corporations. I would be the guy that would run those things because I
I
was so good at.
literally drove 60 miles to go to a video conference one time.
Sure,
Spent an
I believe it.
hour and then drove back home.
Well, and I
Um,
owned I owned a recording studio that wasn't too different from the one that's sitting behind you, and so I mean, I've been in the
Hang on, I need
technology
to adjust
business
something.
forever. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds so much better.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're much clearer now.
thank you.
But I think that one of the things that we have to realize is what's old is new. So I've been social distancing for 20 years in my business. I discovered a long time ago that, hopping in a car, going to somebody's office, sitting down, doing a meeting, then going home and creating a proposal and emailing it was a waste of time. It was like I was spending an hour each way going to somebody's office, only
Right.
to find out that what they were doing was just trying to get my number so they could hand
Again,
it to
you
somebody
young
else.
kids. When I sold, we went out, tried to get in to see the person. When we did, got permission for a proposal. By the way, before me, they just go and pitch. But what we
Right.
learned was that we'd go and find out about the business and say, "Listen, I got some ideas. I'm going to talk to the staff. Come back with a proposal." Then
Hmm.
go away. A week later, we go back with the proposal. hopefully get in, see the guy, hand him a piece of paper. It was typed on a typewriter,
Right.
no email, no fax.
Right.
And you know what? We made a living doing that.
Yeah.
And today,
Absolutely.
to complain about the work you have to do to contact somebody, when I see somebody trying to cold call, or I'm going to mass email people I've never talked to, I just go, what are you, crazy? There's gobs of people that want to talk to you. Stop treating them like you want them to go away.
Exactly. So, I mean, so if we're going to talk about the newer technologies, you have to sit back and say none of this stuff is really new. It's just
Sure.
reinvented. It's being imagined.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So back in 2014, 15, somebody walks up to me and says, oh man, I can't remember the name of the damn app. I had so many damn apps on my phones. It
So you
was,
were in the water retention business?
yeah, well,
They were dam apps?
oh, damn apps. Yes, I was big time
Okay.
into that. I can't even remember the name of the darn app.
We're a family show. There'll be dang apps.
Yeah, dang. Well, dang is funny,
Darn's okay.
but it was
What's a good?
it basically was a walkie-talkie app. Where
Yep.
you could walkie-talkie a whole bunch of people on the phone, and
Oh,
so
they
that
had a
was
cell phone. They had a cell phone like thing. It was a device, and then Sprint bought it and incorporated it into their phones.
yeah. Wasn't
They were
that the
trying to
next?
upsell me
Wasn't
on the
that was
idea
the
that I
next?
could click to talk.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the Nextel back way yonder. That was the
right.
thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, so this was an app, and it was basically a walkie-talkie app. And I was at a conference, and I was actually working at the conference, and they would message everybody, and you'd have to go to the app and listen to the message. So now we get this thing like Clubhouse, where my watch just dinged me and said, "Hey, your buddy just opened up a room on Clubhouse. Why don't you go join him?" And I had somebody the other morning, ping me and say, "Hey, Brian, you need to come to this room." And so the only difference between the walkie-talkie app is that you go to this app on your phone, and now you could talk to the people live.
Right.
So, but the
So,
technology is no different. It's just,
so
but it's how it's being
question
used.
on the Clubhouse: does that come up on your watch, and you just click and start talking to the watch?
Well, you can do it. You can do it from the watch, or you can do it from the phone. It doesn't have an app on here. It just alerts you,
It's just
and
an
then
alert right now. Yeah,
yes,
but
and
that'll
then
come. Dick
yeah.
Tracy style will be talking to the watch.
Oh yeah, it'll happen. But it's kind of hard to navigate because when you're inside there, you have to actually navigate to get up on
Right.
stage, and you have to mute your microphone, do all that stuff. So I think it's going to be a little bit harder on
That
a
could be
watch to do.
turned into gestures. That's easy enough. That could
Yeah,
be done. But
it could.
again, I'm always thinking about the future. It's funny I think about the future. I also think about before your story.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw when as soon as somebody asked me to join Clubhouse. By the way, we're talking about Clubhouse. It's a .com, right?
I believe so. I'd have to go look, but
Okay, check
I
that
can.
for us. But anyway, I get invited to this thing, and I go, okay, I got to try this because I'm Mr. Stay on New Technology. I got to try these things. Oh, everybody's doing it. Well, a bunch of friends were doing it, but they're marketers, and there
Yep.
are people talking about how this is going to be such a great thing. And you've heard the terms marketers ruin it.
Right.
They were trying hard to do that. There were the network marketers were coming in, the people pitching.
Right.
I'm a business consultant. You need a business consultant? No, and I don't need a business consultant.
Well, and
No business consulting.
that's
Um,
exactly it, and it is a .com. And the thing about it is, when I went on, I started joining a handful of rooms with some people that I know from the business. Michael
right,
Stelzner from Social Media Examiner. In that
right,
room was John Lee Dumas and Pat Flynn, and a whole bunch of people that you've
right.
heard of.
In the
And they're
podcast
all
world, that's great.
yeah, they're all on stage and they're all talking, and you join in, you ask them a question, and you get a chance to talk to them, which is kind of cool.
Right,
Because I mean, I had John Lee Dumas on my podcast, and his booking assistant says you have 25 minutes from the time that he connects with you to the time that you finish. If you don't start the podcast right away, you're done. So it was like this very, very narrow window that I had to work with,
right.
and
That's weird.
that was fine. I can work within those boundaries, but it's like the guy's too busy to talk to you. But now all of a sudden on Clubhouse, you just hop on and say, "Hey, John, hi man, how you doing? Remember
Right,
the podcast? Bacon." And you say, "Bacon? Oh yeah, bacon." Now all of a sudden he remembers and he'll talk to you. But if I tried
right.
contacting him out of the blue, that would never happen.
So
So
interesting. And there's some advantage to that. It's a great networking tool to do that. But I looked at it, and the first thing I got was party lines.
Yeah.
So, way back when phones started, it was party lines, but getting a
Right.
single line was a big deal. I always had a single line from the 50s on. That's
No,
what the parents
we
had.
had party lines. I remember that back in New
Yeah,
York when
but
you
then it
know.
was, as I was a teenager, it became a craze to get on. And there were some that went in with the 976 and 900 number
Oh
to
yeah.
pay to participate. And, depending on whether or not the person on the end they're in was pretending to be unclothed. And
Hey, you do live in Vegas, man. There's a lot
but
of that.
it wasn't in Vegas, and I never participated. No, the whole idea of getting on a group thing, and then all trying to get in, and it's like, if I can't dominate a conversation, why bother? Um,
Well,
well,
then
maybe I'm not quite that crass, but I like to be able to have a one-on-one conversation, or a classroom where I'm presenting to a group of people, or sit in the classroom and listen to somebody. Yeah,
Right.
raising the hand and talking, that's all good. But I got thinking, like, well, we can do this. We have video. We have AMAs on Reddit. We have a lot of ways to do this. Of course, I'm not a big Reddit user for the same reason. When you get to live, it's too cluttered, and it's like IRC. And I have to admit, not using Reddit enough to verify that that's true. But I remember IRC, I'd get on one of those things and it just like scroll on my screen. And this is, old modem style doing it. And
Yep.
I just go like, all these people, who are they? And occasionally they'll link out to something that's interesting, and I hit the link and I'm gone. So I spend 5 minutes on IRC. I never got to think of it. So fast forward, that's the way I feel about Clubhouse right now. Even though the people you're talking to are great, will they be doing this a year from now?
And that's the question that you don't know, and that's why you got to play with it, And that's
Yeah, exactly.
and the key thing is ROI. I was, the one I popped onto this morning. It was a LinkedIn expert asking, "Why should I be on Pinterest?" And I know the LinkedIn expert, and I'm just going, "There's no reason to be on Pinterest. I mean, you can,
Right.
you could post your, your images on Pinterest, and somebody might find you on LinkedIn, but."
Right.
The people on Pinterest are people that are into crafts, they're into weddings,
Right.
they're into, there's very, very few people that are into LinkedIn on Pinterest, and it's like,
Right.
and this person is saying, "Oh, you need to be on Pinterest." And I'm going,
Well,
"No,
and
you
there's
don't."
the whole, SEO. I've got to put out a certain amount of content in certain places. That's the thing, is good SEOs aren't trying to get you to create huge content.
Toilet
But
paper,
a lot
baby.
a lot of it is like used toilet paper.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
that's the biggest thing about SEO is in the book I talk about this in the B2B marketing space when we're talking, it's one thing if you're trying to create a group of people, build a tribe, get a bunch of people to join your membership, which is, what the vast majority of those people on that platform are trying to do. They're just basically trying to expand their membership on their, $99 a month platform. And so they see an opportunity to speak to people that they haven't spoke to before. You talk about SEO, and I talk to a lot of big companies, and these are bigger companies that hire SEO companies, $2,500, $5,000 a month. And I say, okay,
Right.
well, how do you track that to sales? Well, we don't. Okay. It's like, I can get you 1 million visitors tomorrow for $500. There's only 2 problems with that. Problem number 1 is you have to convert your website to Russian and Farsi. Number 2, neither of those people will buy anything from you. So it's like, but that's the thing with SEO is SEO drive traffic, but it's
Right.
not going to drive the right traffic.
Well,
And
and actually, yeah, good SEO would tell you, in defense of my partner doing SEO. Yeah, he'll tell you that what you ought to do is target what you want. They also use a lot of PPC in what they do.
right.
And if you're a plastic surgeon and you get 10 leads and close 2 of them for 50 grand, now you've got a good business model, and it's okay that you paid hundreds of dollars per lead to get it from
Right.
PPC, or
Yeah,
that
and
you optimize with social media and have a funnel that gets rid of all the looky-loos and get the
Right.
people asking a real question, and that's work. I mean, I have 500,000 Twitter followers, and any of them can ask me a question, and I
Right.
will answer.
Well,
I'm
but
there.
but the
And
key
I do
thing
the
is,
same thing if I'm on Clubhouse. It doesn't really matter the platform. I'm there. I just spent a few days with a site that had no reply, for all of the transactional messages they were doing. And I said, first thing I want to do here is send all those to me. They're all landing in my main Gmail box. Took a while to set up the filters. Boy, was I flooded. especially as I was getting some older ones. Now it's down to once I get rid of the auto responders for vacations and some things like that, it is 10 to 20 real questions from people. It's some ridiculous questions, but I'm hearing what the people are asking.
Right.
And then I got thinking, like, okay, so the next thing I looked at was the social media. They were producing social media for a Facebook page. They got hundreds of thousands of people. No matter what they do, they're going to get some interaction. But they're just posting these memes, right? And no real interaction from the staff. And so they have a second page. I happened onto that yesterday while I'm not quite ready to fix this part of it. And I found a page where we're posting a couple of times a day and there's zero interaction. Now, I don't know if it's just a copy of what's on the first page or not. I haven't explored this at all. But even if it is, the few minutes it takes to post each one of those, completely wasted. There's no strategy, no reason to build a community there.
Well, that's the big picture point is what you're talking about is, SEO without strategies, PPC without strategy, without having some way of being able to track down ask cost per lead. It's like, what are you willing to tolerate?
I know the value of me taking a couple of hours of my time and doing that. It does not translate into dollars and cents in that action. And I can't teach somebody to do that, to be me with my brain and experience,
right.
getting those things. But I know the value because the next day, well, one, I got a good story to put in this podcast. But the next thing I do with them, I'll be able to go, okay, now let's do this. One of them will not be, let's get the VA handling the replies on Facebook to interact more. She's just not going to do it. That's not her skill set.
Yeah, and the bottom line is
let's put her on something that does make sense.
Right. No, and that's I gave this presentation on LinkedIn to this group of CEOs once, and when I finished the presentation, I was talking about building authentic. Bacon stands for, by the way, not only is it delicious, but it stands for building authentic connections, online networking. That's the whole concept behind it, is how do you build real relationships? And the CEO of one of these companies said to me, he said flat out, he says, hey, I don't need any of this stuff. I got people that do everything for me. And I said, that's interesting. Do you also have somebody to take your wife out to dinner too? And of course he got really angry with me, but the reality is you can't build a relationship through a VA. You need to be you. You need to be accessible. You need to be talking to people, and that's, you talk about Lunch Club. I mean, that's what Lunch Club is about.
So some of the people doing, some of the VAs and stuff are doing things that are useful. I'm always shocked to find out how much useful things in there, all buried underneath a whole lot of mechanical, doesn't make any sense. So the same with AI. Let's talk about that for a moment. If I have AI running a chat bot, as a customer, I was first pissed. I don't want to talk to a bot. And then I got to, okay, some of these are getting pretty good. Let me ask the question. Usually they don't. And now the good ones will say, you need to talk to an agent. Well, I knew that before I started because I wouldn't be bothering with the chat unless it was something that I knew I needed to talk to somebody. But I'll go through the chat because, staying on mission and learning from the experience. And some of them are quite helpful. If they get me to the right rep faster, that's great. IVR systems, interactive voice response, same thing, push button 7, or now say it. I hate your company. And they're getting smart enough to know I hate your company means better talk to a friendly support person right away and not put this guy through the hell of having to ask a bunch of questions. Right. By the way, I haven't found one that identifies I hate your company. But
you haven't called Comcast lately.
Now wait a minute, is that because you hate them or because they actually have something that answers I hate your company?
Both.
They do? Really? Okay.
I can't say from experience, but I can tell you there are hashtags out there as Comcast sucks, and they know that. And if you go on Twitter and put Comcast sucks,
I have.
They will respond to you immediately.
I have Cox. They were way behind Comcast, and I met the Comcast guy that started Comcast Cares or whatever it was to start off with, and so we had So interesting that we had a lot of fun with that, going in and saying like, yeah, now an executive at Comcast is on Twitter every day talking to people about their real problems.
Yeah.
And what could
Yeah.
that do? And then, of course, during his tenure was when the video came out of the Comcast rep falling asleep while trying to install something in somebody's home.
Right.
So you got a Comcast tech lying on the couch, and video goes viral. Well, hey, it was funny. You got to do something about it. You got to fix that. And I think AI is going to fix those kind of things, in that guy needed something routine, and they had set up a rule that if he had to call in to get a certain code or do whatever, I would imagine today he's got a smartphone or tablet and can do that without talking to somebody. But let's just say that in that kind of an instance, the AI will identify that that's a pattern. And right now we're not seeing much of that yet. But when I start getting something like, I know that if I pull up Uber, it's going to tell me the last place I ordered food, what places I go to on a regular basis. I moved last year. Changing my home address in there became a problem. They kept wanting to send me away from my home, or occasionally order an Uber. I say, my daughter needs a ride, and I say, let me just send an Uber. And so I go on there and I'm trying to put in her address. Even though I've done it 10 times, it wants to send the car to me. And I've had to back out an order and do it again. But I know the Uber AI is learning about all that and doing a better job. Oh, we know that when people go to this place, they don't want to be at the apartment complex back gate that's locked and nobody, even the fire department, knows how to get in there. And allegedly, the fire department knows that's what it's there for. Or you want to go in the front gate where, all the humans go. And it can learn that over time. And it will learn that, when I want my food delivered, that I know that if you're making the delivery, here's the code, come on in the house and leave it on the kitchen counter, or put it in the refrigerator. And we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to say, I'm located, or we're having a party in the backyard, bring the pizzas around, stay and have a slice. But, and you can put that in. So UPS driver will know that when it gets to your house, what to do, because it will be right on the instructions for the package.
Right.
And
there's some interesting technologies around that as well. I was talking with one of my customers today, and there is a company that's coming out with smart tags like RFID tags. But what they do is they actually measure temperature. So you can actually track the temperature of your pizza from the time it comes out of the oven to the time it shows up on your doorstep. You can actually track the temperature of COVID vials of vaccine to make sure that they're monitored all the way through the process, that they stay compliant with the desired negative whatever it is 100-degree temperature. So the technology that's getting around all of this stuff and the ability to be able to utilize it, I think the technology is out ahead of the use.
It always has been.
Yeah,
it always has been. Yeah. In other words, I had a smartphone before the iPhone. We hadn't quite got it right. It caught on with the people, and then everybody was able to jump up, catch up with Jobs and his team and make good smartphones. Right. But it wasn't like that was all new technology. We had touch screens way before that. We had you could type on a screen. They improved it incrementally, but the new technology was that we have a phone that operates on mobile, because the first mobile phones were fantastic, but heck, I hated to pick it up. It was 90 cents a minute. Oh no, what's going to happen? But what I found is, if I'm stuck on a freeway and I was going to someplace at the time, I remember going to Orange County, in Orange County, California. We used to say we hate those people because in our area, we get on the freeway, we look across the freeway and it's empty, and we say, gosh, I wish I was going the other direction. But in Orange County, they look across the freeway and it's crowded both ways. So it was common, and this is the same with downtowns everywhere. You want to go to downtown Chicago, I'm sure you can plan ahead to be there early, but you never really know what's going to happen between
Oh,
your house
I've lost jobs because I had to show up a day. This again goes back to what we were talking about. Is I'm driving downtown Chicago to go to this lawyer's office who wanted to hire me to do something. I showed up at his office 10 minutes late. I walk in the door and he said to me, "You're 10 minutes late. Get out of here."
Right. Well,
And I
what I
said, "I
did,
just spent an hour and a half in the car to talk to you. I can't control traffic. I'm sorry. I didn't expect an
yeah.
accident on my
Now,
way
and,
down."
and of course, in the legal world, they're used to, you got to be in court at the right time and all that kind of
No,
stuff.
and I get it,
But
but still,
if you called, and I'm going back to 80s, when I used my phone then, the big brick in the car,
Yep.
and made a call and said, "Hey, I'm running late. This is what's happening." Okay, I'll tell her. And I'd get there and nobody'd say anything about it.
Right.
In China now, in some of the cities, they're using something that is voice instead of SMS and doing asynchronous communication with people stuck in traffic on their way to the meeting. So the
Sure.
first hour of the meeting is conducted with the guy in the car.
Yep.
We don't quite have that handoff. I remember talking to a guy who thought radio on the internet was the future, with stations and programming at a certain time. And he was working actually with one of the big hotels here. And one of the marketing guys wanted to have a radio show, and it was good, but it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. When am I ever going to listen to that?
Right.
And it did go out over an AM station, but mostly it was there. We got into this long discussion about what the future is. You don't stand a chance because the future will be, and this is 15, 20 years ago. I said, you won't, you don't stand a chance. The future is going to be, I'm listening to music on my computer or in my sound system. I walk out the door. I want that same thing on in my car, and I want it same in whatever my handheld. We didn't even have smartphones yet back then, so the thought of getting that was. But now that's what I want. My frustration is I've got 6 devices going at any time, and I was in a conversation like this morning, and suddenly my headphones start telling me that my iPhone's been disconnected. Nope, your iPhone is back. And I go, oh crap! I had to get up and go to the next room and find the iPhone and turn it off. Why the Bluetooth connection was interfering? But boy, it's sure nice when I say, great, I'm going to pick up the iPhone. I'm done with this meeting, and there it is. Well, now I'm going to have to turn it back on, but it's okay. The technology is getting better. It's far from perfect. But I guess what I'm saying is we need to start looking at how that enhances what we're doing. AI is not going to take jobs. AI is going to enhance jobs. AI is augmented intelligence. It's not artificial. It's real. It's here. We're not fighting it. We don't have to worry about the robots taking over. If they do, it's too late because the software is already writing software. And we just, have to pray that we learn how to control it. Mm-hmm. So what about this problem of, and you're encountering this with your clients and whatnot, that just don't want to accept that they can't do business the way they've always done.
Well, the biggest thing deals with the sales teams is like, I was talking with a big company that I'm working with, and they have 2 different sales teams, inside sales, outside sales.
Right.
I always thought that outside sales was the prospecting side, but actually it was their boots on the ground that was going to everybody's offices and basically shaking hands and bringing donuts and all that other stuff.
Right.
And that's the biggest challenge that they have is they can't walk in anybody's office unannounced because they don't know if anybody's going to be there. They don't have any clues to whether the people are actually working remotely or in the office. So
well, having been a salesman, I know that walking into an office unannounced is not the way to do it.
Well, but that's the way they're used to doing it.
In the 80s, I started my company, and what we did was we had a technique when we were in a building where we had a customer. We would take, flyers or business cards in hand, go walking in, maybe even the toolbox from having done the repair, and I'd have my people walk in and say, "Hey, I was in the building over here. I just didn't. I don't know. Do you have laser printers?" Because we were a laser printer company, and they'd either say yes or no, and say, "Great, let me leave this." That was acceptable. Yep. But you know what? We tried it in the 90s. It wasn't working like it did in the 80s.
Sure.
In the 80s, I sent my dad. My dad was definitely not for technology. Never used a computer in his life, or anything like that. But he knew to pick up and deliver the toner cartridge. Am I keeping you from something?
No, it's just another one of those somebody. Hey, this is the watch, baby. Somebody's
I'm
going
trying.
into
I'm telling you, like the.
Clubhouse.
Yeah, I'm treating you like the lawyer.
Yeah,
What do
but
you
it's
mean you're looking at your watch in a meeting? I ain't
so
hiring you.
so and so forth. Just joined a Clubhouse meeting, and it's just letting me know since we're talking about
Well,
this
it's an
stuff, and that's
interesting thing. When I speak, it's less now. Of course, I hardly speak, and none in the last year. The last time I spoke was March 1st of last year, but back a few years ago, I'd regularly say, especially when I was talking about social media or something like that, hey, folks, everybody else. In fact, one time the moderator, the guy running it, it was his show, total room of 100 people that to make sure they shut off their phones.
mm-hmm.
I stood up and said, I want you to ignore what he just said. Turn your phone on. Would you tell everybody that's here? My theory is that for every person in a seat here, there's probably 10 to 100 people that wish they could come, but it just didn't fit their date or
Right.
priorities today. And so let's tell them all about it. Tell people back home what you're doing. That's okay. I don't care.
Yeah,
And by the
exactly.
way, if you're going to take a call, it would be polite to turn the ringer off. I don't know. I think by the time I was doing this, most people had the ringers off anyway. But set your phone to vibrate, and if something important happens, get up quietly, leave the room. We won't think anything less of you.
Right.
Go do what you have to do. If something on your phone's more important than me, go there. Go take care of it. I'm not going to
Right.
be bad because I'm here when you're ready. And that
Well,
was a change. Instead of trying to mind control the audience using NLP techniques to close
right.
them on something and get them to do your call to action, it became, how can I serve this audience best? And I do the same thing in podcasts, the same thing in in all the sites and advertising, all the relationships, is how can
Mm-hmm.
I serve them better? And so we haven't talked about very many technologies, but I do want to touch on, since you are the expert, what do you use with the Nimble and LinkedIn and Crystal? Give us
Well,
that so
well,
we include
yeah,
that in this podcast.
I'll jump on that in a sec, but I wanted to kind of share, a couple of different things. I mean, first and foremost, the iWatch itself makes it super, super simple to be able to look at your wrist and see the same things that you would see on your computer or see the same things that you'd have on your phone.
Right.
You just kind of glance at it and you're good. It's not, it looks
You know
really
what?
like you're checking the time, but
Yeah.
really what you're doing is seeing, is there anything, like if there's a client crisis, something
Yeah.
blew up, I want to know about it. So this has
Yeah.
the text on it, it has the notifications on it. So to me, this is
I don't know,
actually,
but when you're talking to me, I want do not disturb for an hour.
yeah, no,
Um,
and I can easily put it in airplane mode too. But here's another technology I want to show you that, we could talk about the other thing, but this is basically it's a digital notepad. It's called
yeah.
Remarkable. Okay. And everybody said to me, says, go buy an iPad. It does the same thing. And the
Right.
thing is, I don't want an iPad. I
Right.
want something that is paper that I can write on that saves everything that I write. So I'm not walking around with a bunch of stuff like this, which I
Right.
still have on my desk. This is the remainder of a pile of 40 sheets of paper of notes that I've taken since January 1st. All right. So,
Right.
there's certain technologies that you want to be interrupted on. There's certain technologies where you don't want to be interrupted on. So the key question is when you're dealing with all of this stuff, what's important to the person that you're communicating with. So one of the
Right.
things that we talked about was the lunch club. Okay, so I went on lunch club. I don't remember who introduced it. It might have
Is
been
that a
you.
.ai or .com?
I don't know if it's a .ai. I think it's a .io, if I'm not mistaken. I
.io.
think it's
That's right.
lunchclub.io,
Yeah.
clubhouse.com. But the thing about Lunch Club is I was getting bored with going to all these networking meetings, because you show up at these networking meetings, you'd have 100 people in a room, and everybody in the room had one goal, and that was to sell you their crap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to go to these meetings and just listen to people pitch me. One guy who I met in one of these meetings who booked a one-on-one with me. And he says, tell me about your business. And I said, okay, this is what I do. And he was a financial advisor, and I listened to him, and we had a nice conversation. And he says, okay, great, nice talking to you. Then a week later, he says, hey, I want to have another one-on-one with you. I said, okay, it's like, do you have, maybe he wants to learn more about my business or something like that? He asked me again, how things are going. And at the end of the meeting, he pulls up a PowerPoint slide with connections. He went through my LinkedIn profile and found people that he wanted to be connected to and wanted me to connect them with him so that he could pitch them on his financial services. And And then, I said, "No, none of those people are really a good fit, and, trying to brush him off. And then he connected up a third time. And he did the same thing again. I said, look, if this is what you're having the one-on-ones for, they're a waste of your time, because just the fact that you've done this twice, I am not going to give you any names. Right. And there may even be somebody, you've basically proven to me, you don't give a damn about me. You care about my network. All right. So, when we're using something like Lunch Club, we can meet people from different industries. I got the first Lunch Club meeting I had, I talked to a guy who was a big data dude. And I asked him the question, I said, what are you seeing in big data that is important to salespeople that they need to know? And he says, well, I work with Procter & Gamble. I work with Yum Yum Brands, all these things. He says, here's the thing that I figured out, that the companies that are most successful in the COVID era, they are spending 70% of their time building relationships with their current and past customers. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest problems about past customers is they're past customers probably because they left their jobs, got let go because of COVID, whatever it is. And that's happened to me. I've had a lot of customers, who are gone because they've been let go because of COVID. And so what they're doing is they spend 70% of their time working the relationships that they currently have, and 30% of their time nurturing new relationships, prospecting, meeting new people, doing whatever it is that they need to do. He said the companies that varied from that, 80, 20, 60, 40, were the ones that were struggling. He says, so that formula seems to be really core. So in Lunch Club, here's what I do. Every time I go to a Lunch Club, let's say I'm meeting you for the first time, the first thing I do is I go into LinkedIn. I look at your profile. I see who you know. Who do you know that I know? I met a guy in Lunch Club who introduced me to another guy. I got a speech at a Lunch Club, okay? And the guy who was speaking after me says, you need to talk to this guy so you guys can coordinate your speeches. And I said, okay, fine. So I talked to the guy. Happens to be in Philadelphia. I looked at his profile and noticed that he knew Ken MacArthur. So immediately I was able to go to him and say, hey, you know Ken, I know Ken. And he goes, oh yeah, Ken's a great guy. I love the guy. Immediately we hit it off because I did the research. Now what I do is I go into Nimble, I use their prospector and I pull him in. I write notes about what we said, the fact that he knows Ken. And now I've got a profile of him and I put a star next to him saying that I want to stay in touch with this guy because he's of value. That's what Nimble does. Crystal, before I meet him, I've already done the research of who he knows and looked at his profile. Crystal is a tool that allows me to go in and through AI, like you're saying, get a personality profile of this person. Are they a high D? Do they want to drive the meeting? Are they an I? Are they an innovator? They like big thinking? Are they, an S? Are they somebody who's very skeptical and, or are they conservative? Are they a C? Where they like to keep things very tightly in a box. So when I'm talking to somebody, I already have a kind of a preconceived notion of what I'm getting into. Now, I have ways to be able to utilize these tools to capture the data to, make sure that I'm using this data in a way that's going to enhance their relationship with me and my relationship with them. The gentleman I talked about in Philadelphia happens to be in IT security. I happen to have a buddy who's in Chicago who runs a data center. And I said, you know what? I talked to my buddy at the data center. I said, hey, this guy's in Philadelphia. Seems like he knows his crap. Do you want to talk to him, about this? You just have a convo. He said, absolutely. So I was able to put those two guys together. What did I do? Through the data that I collected, through using LinkedIn, through using relationships, is I built a chain of trust between these people. Now when I contact either one of them, if they have a good relationship, they're going to say, hey, give me more of this, or they're going to reciprocate and maybe send somebody my way. Right. So relationship marketing is about utilizing the tools that we have in front of us that we would normally do too. When I meet these people, I can take notes now and keep those notes and transcribe them, or I can email them, put them in the Nimble file with them. So, right. I can handwrite notes. One of the things I've noticed about this digital notepad is, number one, it's bigger than these little pads, so I can write bigger. But number two, I'm taking more notes on this because when I write something on a piece of paper, I know that somehow or another I have to take this and transcribe it. I have to put it in Evernote. I have to put it into Nimble. I have to put it somewhere. So you know what I've been doing is taking as minimal notes as I possibly could, because I knew the more notes I wrote, the more I'd have to actually take this and put it somewhere. Now with this thing, I basically fill a page, add another page, add another page. It takes it all and I can add it in. And now I've got those notes sitting in front of me. I'm taking better notes because of the technology.
Right.
That's going into Nimble. Crystal, I print out a PDF of their profile, add that to Nimble. So I'm building a database of people and the relationship around them. That's what this technology does.
Right. Well, I think what the main thing you bring up here is the idea that you've introduced those two people, and a lot of people overlook that. Your guy with the financial planning wanted to work through you to get to a prospect.
Right.
That's old school. Basically he's doing door to door.
Yeah.
But using technology to annoy you faster.
Right. Exactly.
And well, you don't want any help. Who else do you know? You're
Right.
standing in my lobby, wasting my time. Goodbye. You didn't even get in to see me in the office. That's
Right.
how we used to handle that. But I learned a long time. It was Alex Mandossian who put it in a way that really got. He called it a try. It was something with triangle, try something or other. That you're at a networking event and you meet somebody, and then you meet somebody else who could get to know them. You introduce those two people and then get out of the conversation as fast as you
Right.
can. And I'm going like, well, you're big Alex Mandossian, you're a big star, and you're just trying to. And then I got thinking about, no, what he's doing is actually great. I did it in that meeting. It was in Vancouver. I was speaking, he was speaking, and and so I put together two people. One, I think that was right before they had the Olympics up there, and one guy knew about properties for rent, and the other guy knew about people needing properties, to rent for the time of the Olympics. And we introduced them. Did they ever do any business? Who cares?
Right.
Because what you're doing is you're building the relationship network without you having to do the work. Right. They have to get to know each other. If it goes sour, that's okay. One or both of them will let you know, and you'll, alter what you do. But usually it doesn't go that sour.
But see, one of the things
very seldom do you get somebody to complain and say, I lost my shirt dealing with that guy and I blame you.
Right. One of the things that you have to realize when you do these relationship things is that the vast majority of business that we get in the B2B space, and I don't know if it's the same in the consumer space, tend to be somebody that refers you to somebody else. It's rare that you meet somebody that immediately does business with you, but somebody gets to know, like, and trust you, which is in my first book, and I talk about that. And they say you need to talk to this person. And so it's the referral that you're trying to build. If that guy would have came to me and said, hey, I just want to get to know you, and then the next thing you know, he referred somebody to me, ended up being a really great business, then would be the time to say, hey.
Now reciprocation.
Right, exactly. Now I'd say, hey, you know what? Thank you for that huge lead. I made a ton of money. Here's the thing. I'm going to be on the lookout for people that I think that would be a good fit for your business.
The other thing that Alex didn't cover, but it's just, I learned this and it's just become so important to me, that it's the inception. Mm-hmm. So, we know the movie Inception, and they're talking about the dream and the dream and the dream, and forget all that. But the idea of the inception, that in order to get the guy to do something, he had to have a starting point.
Right.
And, of course, in the movie, they're trying to make it like hide where that inception is. But that concept, if I rewatch the movie occasionally because I like thinking about this concept.
Yeah.
Everything every person goes back to one point. You and me met up in Denver, but we were connected before that. But that was kind of an inception for.
Well, and that inception actually, I could trace it all back to Felicia Slattery, who I happened to see at a speech in Oswego, Illinois, who eventually, after I wrote my book, got me on a plane to go down to Atlanta to meet a whole bunch of people, including Joel Comm, including, Ken MacArthur, including all these other people. And then you ended up coming into my life. And so there's all of these, kind of connections. And the whole concept of the 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon is not too far off the truth. We are all connected within 6 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
The key question is there are certain people that know how to maximize that, and there are other people that are just blind to it. And that's the key, is how do you maximize those connections? And one of the things that I try to do, and kind of close this out in a way that makes sense and gives your audience something to take away, is I have this thing called the 10-10-10. All right. And I talk about it in my books, and I talk about it when I speak. And the 10-10-10 is very simple. And I use Nimble for this. You connect with 10 people, 10 minutes, 10 words. All right. So I pick 10 people. I take 10 minutes. I add 1 minute to per person. This morning, I sent out 5 emails, 3 instant messages in Facebook, 1 instant message in LinkedIn, and 1 text. So I hit 10 people. It took me 10 minutes to do that. And I just said, how are you doing? You know, how can I help you? Or how are you doing? Let's connect. It's been a while since we talked. But the 10 words are, how are you doing? What can I do for you? That's it. And if you do this, 10 people, 5 days a week, that is 50 people. If you do that every single week, you're going to talk to 200 people. You are one, this is one connection today. You are one of those 200 people. So now I've reached out to 200. There's a thing called Dunbar's number, which basically says that the average person can maintain 150 relationships at a time. All right. So that's why I picked the number 200, because I know at least a quarter of them are never going to respond. So out of that 200 people, I'm creating and building relationships constantly using technology like Nimble, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, like my text, like anything I could possibly do. And the cool thing is that occasionally that ends up turning into a one-on-one meeting via Zoom, or it could be a lunch club meeting, or it could be a clubhouse meeting.
Right.
All of these technologies are there to help enhance the relationships.
And the interesting thing about that is we get away from what's the closing rate, how many of these people we convert.
Right.
Because a good marketing, as opposed to door-to-door sales, is getting to a position where there's a spigot you can turn on or off. Right. You need more leads. You need more anything. I need my iPhone repaired. I turn on somewhere out there. Somebody's going to tell me what to do.
Right.
I actually just put up a sign. I'm looking right at it. I put it next to the clock. It's got one word: who.
Right.
There's a book called Not How, Who. And it's all about the idea that every problem you solve is about a relation with the person.
Right. And I have the same thing in front of me, but it's the word why. What problem does this solve? Why? Is this my space, and will it make, is it an asset?
Yeah, I get the same thing. And right next to that, I have my 3 words for the year, which we won't go into, but you choose 3 words. I got that from Chris Brogan. I've been doing it for 6 years. Yep. It's a New Year's resolution. This year, I decided to get the words up there.
I pick one word. My word for this year is signify. It's basically light the way like a lighthouse. And
right.
To be the beacon out there that guides people.
And we could go on for an hour of the stories, just as what's happened for me following that. Having goals, I just get bored with like setting goals. One time I decided to put 500 goals in a spreadsheet, and I got up to a couple of hundred, lost the spreadsheet. This didn't feel like I was just making up stuff, Well, I need to go to the store on Thursday. That's hardly a goal. It technically is a goal. It's a smart goal because it has a definite where I'm going and how much money I'm going to spend and what I'm going to do, but does not really enhance my life and make me a better person. Right. Reading does. Meeting people does. And that whole idea of I can go do something that's an inception for something. I posted this tweet last week that I reused this card several times. So I really like it. It's amazing how much work you can get done when you don't worry about who's going to get the credit. And and the card that I got said anonymous or unknown or something like that. And I get people coming back and telling me who said it, and they're kind of missing the point. Whoever said it shouldn't have been looking for credit. Right. So exactly. I'm guessing they weren't. I've seen Lincoln. I've seen people quote that it came from Plato or the Bible. It's just not the point. Yeah. And then sometimes it's, well, what happens if you do something you don't get it? Or I'd say, you want more, give more. And then go like, well, sometimes if people don't reply, they're like, doesn't matter. Right. You just do what you're going to do and know the universe is going to take care of it. So and if there is something in particular that doesn't work, get rid of it.
One of my all-time favorite marketing, and I'll leave you with this because I'm going to have to jump off for another meeting in a little bit. But one of my favorite marketing...
I'm not your only meeting today.
Oh God, no! You're number 6, dude. Yeah, I usually start. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when I start, and I go till 10 o'clock at night. It's crazy, but
Oh.
the thing is, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It was basically attested to Ernest Hemingway, who's the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated, and the fact that he said this
Uh,
was exaggerated too. There's nobody who can point
Wait a
to it.
minute. Mark Twain said rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated.
See, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely misquoted. But anyways, but the bottom line is that he was given the chance to write a one sentence ad with 6 words, and the 6 words were baby shoes for sale, never worn.
Hmm.
Right, which creates this emotional handbasket.
It's
Right.
a whole story.
Right. It's a whole story in 6 words. And what happens is that when you hand it to a marketer, what a marketer says is, hey, we've got these brand new, comfortable leather shoes made of fine Corinthian leather that provide support and comfort for your baby available now.
Hmm.
Right? That's the difference between telling a story in the least amount of words like Twitter does and trying to add all of the features and benefits to what goes on. The end
That's
result
a
with
that's a great tip. I'm going to tweet something about that. Not
yeah,
about
but
the technique. Something like the baby shoes. I'm going to
yeah,
think of
it's
one and
just
do it
it's you
today.
could say it either way. It's either, for sale baby shoes never worn or
Hmm.
baby shoes for sale never worn. But the key thing about it is that when you're talking to people, it's about what emotion does it create, what connection does it create. It's not about the features, it's not about the benefits. It's about what value do you bring, you know and if somebody put that out there, there's a chance that somebody would come and ask what happened, or somebody would just buy them and pay twice as much to help them deal with the grief. It's like,
Absolutely.
so that's the key thing, is if you can take what you're doing and simplify it that much and get it in front of people and be of service to them, the end result is you will be successful.
I just did something where we raised the price 250%. And we found out that, everybody coming to that website that was buying, not everybody, but a majority of them were there on their first day. And when they got presented with the regular price, they'd buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the promotion was about selling it for 70% off.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's 250% increase. And I got rid of that. And everything is, we haven't seen it yet, but first time I just mentioned it in an email to the existing people who have just in the last 2 weeks probably got 3 offers to get it for $20, and we went to 49.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just put it in there. If you're not part of this program, you can upgrade here. And I put it one line at the top of the. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
it fits the story method.
Right.
Oh, I'm not part of it. I could do. Oh, really? You could be a VIP. Click here. In fact, I didn't even say click here. You would be a
Mm-hmm.
VIP. It was highlighted, and then and actually that's a large newsletter. So there's an ad, and then there's the news block, and there's more ads, and
Mm-hmm.
all that was going on. And I look at the analytics and go like, hey, we sold a couple of them full price, which turned out for the first 10 days of January to be over 50% of the revenue, even though we sold a lot more at the $20 price.
Right.
And it was because there was a story. So thank you. I realized that I've used this, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the thing. I think I heard it that Hemingway was asked to write a story in 6 words, but
Right.
that's okay. You said ad or something, but that's fine. That definitely will get attention in 6 words. That's the whole story.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
new shoes
whether it
never
was an
worn.
ad, whether it was an ad, whether it was a story, no matter what it was. I mean, it's, no
It was
matter.
it was the power of the 6 words,
Right,
in the
exactly.
power of the story, that then you let the people do that in their mind instead of. And the great screenwriters right now operating on TV and movies are doing stuff where you jump in the middle of the story. The flashbacks are driving me crazy, but I start looking at them going like, I see what they're doing.
Right.
They are assuming we're making up our own story of how people
Right.
got there. I
Right.
just was on somebody's podcast, and the guy started it as like we're in the middle of conversation. There was no we're going to row, we're going live. There was nothing. He was just recording everything. I felt like I just walked in and the conversation was already going on, but it was just me and him,
Mm-hmm.
And I asked and go like, are you going to start the recording? And he goes, no, it's already recording. Well, you're going to edit this? Nah, that who's got time to edit? And I go like, crap, I'm glad it was audio, because I think I was, adjusting my face when I got on the screen, putting my hat on,
Right.
whatever. And so, and I go like, okay, that's cool. I'll roll with it. And then it got weird from there. Well, the weirdest conversation I've ever had in a podcast. And you know what? I've been talking about it ever since. You're like the 10th person I've told. And now the millions of listeners will hear it too. It's down for posterity. Hey, thanks for being here.
Man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Where do we find you? Do we type bacon into a search engine and there you are?
Actually, if you type in Brian Basilico, it's BrianBasilico.
Oh, so I'm going to have to remember how to spell.
Yeah, well, if you a basilica, okay, here's the bottom line. A basilica is a church. Basilico is basil in Italian. So the Basilico is the church of herb. That's all you got to remember. And so just type in Basilico and you will find me. If you type in just Basilico, you're going to end up with
go past the large rock on the field and turn to the left.
Right,
but not on the first turn, on the second turn, which is hidden behind a tree.
Right, and don't search for Brain Basilico, because that's something completely different. It's Brian Basilico, and if you search that, you will find me everywhere.
I think I can find you with Bacon Brian, and just about everywhere. We'll put some links on the podcast and notes or the YouTube video or wherever you wind up seeing this.
Yep,
and find this guy, follow him. It's the Bacon Podcast. I bet you could search on Bacon Podcast.
You could search on Bacon Podcast. That's the easiest way to do it.
Are you the #1 Bacon podcast now?
It's so hard to say what's #1. And here's the bottom line: I don't care. It's whoever.
You don't want their listeners if they're talking about how to cook with bacon.
No, it's not what I'm doing. Yeah, it's a different. Bacon is one of the most searched terms on the internet. But the bottom line is I want to feed my audience, good stuff. And if the audience is 10 people or 1,000 people or 100,000 people, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. I'm there to.
Well, it's not about you. It's about
no. It's about you. It's about bringing you on my show so I can learn from you. That's the whole point. Exactly. That's why I do it.
Well, that's why you're here.
Thank you.
So anyway, a lot more technology we could have talked about, a lot more specifics, but man, gems of wisdom abound when you talk to Brian Basilico. So that's it. We're going to try to figure out how to turn